Hi, I'm Colin and welcome to How to Paint Watercolours. So if you're ready, we'll get started and we'll paint this one. Hello everyone and welcome back to Painting Watercolours with me, Colin. I hope you enjoy this one. It's a lakeside scene, kind of like them. I'm just leaving a thin film of water on the paper. I'll give you a quick run round of the colours. We have Naples yellow, cadmium yellow light, French ultramarine, magenta, burnt sienna and some neutral tint. This neutral tint is transparent, so you can add a lot to it. It makes it look black, but actually it will dry very, very light. There's plenty of blue in this, but we may change it as we go. I'm just going to drop in some Naples yellow and I'm just going to bring it through the sky a little bit, over the mountains. I'm just sweeping some streaks through. I'm going to take some French ultramarine, some neutral tint, plenty of water, more blue I think. It's just to slightly grey it, just check its strength. You've heard me say this before, always make your skies interesting. And then at this point I'm just going to wash some of these areas out. You've got plenty of time to add water. At this stage, a lot of people are frightened of using it. You want some soft parts. And you can bring it into the Naples yellow, and if you don't work it too hard, you won't get a green. Something a little stronger. I'm going to let this hit where the water is. I'm just going to let this hit and spread. Always leaving some of the other underwash to show through. Once again, I just want to wash a little bit of that out. Add a little bit more blue. French ultramarine into the neutral tint, just for some nice deep patches. So again, I'm just going to add plenty of water to it. You want this to dry really soft. Piece of advice for anybody who's taking up watercolours: the colour looks intense when it's wet, but when it dries out, it will dry out nice and soft. I'm going to take some magenta and add it to that. I just want to give a little hint of a violet. Not too much. Bring it into the light patch. This is where you'll get to see it more. It'll be very subtle when it dries. Just allow the water to push the colour around, a bit like a bully. Don't fiddle with it too long, that's enough. As you come down here, I'm just going to add some colours in. Cadmium yellow, light, burnt sienna, maybe a little bit of magenta. As we glaze over the background mountains, some of this colour will show through. If we use a blue-grey, it will match the violet in the sky. Then we're going to let that dry. Okay, I've given this time to dry, so I'm just going to re-wet this background mountain. And sometimes it's easier if you do it this way. It allows the painting to become very, very soft. Colours are allowed to do almost what they want. I'm going to take some of the sky colour there, and I'm just going to add a little bit more neutral tint to it. I really don't want this strong, but I want a purple grey, and I'm just going to check this. It might be a little strong. It'd be a little bit fuzzy. There's lots of trees on these hills, but I want to leave most of it out. Taking the edge off some of this. And we're just going to leave each individual one to dry, so I'm going to leave that to dry. I put that one in the same method I'd put that one in. You didn't really miss anything, but I've just wet the background hills as we're coming further forward. And these are slightly greener, so I'm going to add some cadmium yellow to this colour here. I want to deepen it. These have a little bit of foliage on them, and I'm just going to check. There's a green shade to it, a little bit more blue I think. There's a little bit of French ultramarine. And I've re-wet them so the paint will run. And because I do want a little bit of green in it, a little bit of brighter green, and this will save you trying to put masses of detail in. And I don't want too much on the brush, I don't want it wet. And you're just fooling the eye that there's trees and things here, just by dropping colour in. Change the direction of your stroke and how you lay the paint down will give your background mountains some form rather than leaving them sort of in a flat wash. But you can leave them in a flat wash if you want to. That one's really up to you. Like I said, this is only a suggestion. Bring one or two pieces together. This is going behind some trees, so it doesn't actually matter that much. And then just soften some of the edges in and allow this all to come together. And then I'm going to let that dry. Take some of the same colour again. I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to that, just to earth it up a bit. A little bit more yellow. As we're getting closer, we're moving towards the greens. I've just re-wet this hill, and I'm just dropping some of this green in. I'm going to drop some burnt sienna in. I'm going to drop some magenta in. Back to the green. Darken it with a little bit of neutral tint. Just pull some through. Just gives your eyes something to look at. Let's put something a little brighter in the back of this to bring this a little bit forward through the trees. Just mix a little bit of burnt sienna into that. Pull it through the yellow. I'm just dropping some of that very dark green in because I want to pull it forward a bit. Just softening this in. And this will show up between the trees on this side. Soften in. Just take some water, just brush it back. I think I'll leave them little run backs there, they look like trees. Okay, and I'm going to let that dry. I think it's time we put some trees in. I'm going to take some of that colour green and I'm going to darken it again. Just add a little bit over here. To this one, just to darken that. I'm going to take a mop brush, I've wet it and I've squeezed the water out of it, and I've just re-wet this little patch here and some here. And I want to take some of the paint on right on the tips of the brush and start up where you put the water in. Make sure I get enough on. Just very gently, just touch half the brush into the water and half the brush into the dry paper, and it should give the impression that there is trees here, a little bit of the darker colour. Just allow it to drift through, come down once again. A little bit of the darker colour. some of the lighter colour. You're just creating an impression that something is there. It'll just end up looking like a big mass of evergreens. Got a mop brush here and I'm just breaking the tips open. Put the lighter colour in first. I'll just create some of the bushes and trees that you find around the lock edge or the lakeside edge, leaving some gaps in between, because when you put the other colour on you'll start to fill that in. It's just a gentle touch. Almost like a whisper. When it starts to clump up, dry the brush off, open the tips. This is just bits and pieces here, trying to make them so they're not uniformed in size. I do want to add some darker tone to that. I'm going to take some of the yellow, I'm just going to put it in there to make it darker than the other one. And we can come back in and just gently add the shadowing of the trees. Take some clean water, just catch the bottom and just start to bring this colour into here. This is where you can add some nice earthy browns in and drop some yellow in as well. Adding a bit of dirt, softening this all in, taking some of the darker green, just touching this in at the bottom and allowing this to drift up. Now that all that is dry, I just want to bring in some autumn colours. So I've got some cadmium yellow light and some burnt sienna. And I've got it straight from the tube, and I'm just picking some up from the tips, and I'm just going to try this out on this first. We can just add some in. It's almost like oil painting. I think that's all I want to do with that. I think Sammy came back to the water and I just want to mix up some colour for that. That's the old sky colour with a little bit more French ultramarine in it. I put a little bit more neutral tints and a tiny bit of magenta. All the sky colours for this really. Naples yellow, just to draw your eye through. Horizontal strokes. Checking its strength. I like that, yeah, that'll do. Gently bringing these two colours together, the Naples yellow and the blue. Now we can start to deepen it. Usually the water is a deeper colour in the sky because water has depth and it has bits of things in it. Just want to give it a little movement. Just take some of the green as well and just drop this in just for a reflection along here. You have plenty of time to get this in. You could even drop some yellow in. It's all relatively nondescript. Just drop a little bit of the burnt sienna. Just add a little tiny reflection along in the back. And then you're going to have to let that dry. Now that your water's dry, I've just put some masking fluid on the trunks of the trees just to keep them clean. I want to put this piece of land in here, this little tiny headland. That's just some burnt sienna. Then I'm going to take some of the greens that we have, the dark greens. Sweep some of this in. You want to leave some of the burnt sienna showing through, just giving some a little bit of structure into it, this land. I'll take some of the darker stuff. I'm going to drop it in along the shoreline. Pulling some of this together. Maybe some grasses growing from here. Don't have them all going the same way. Some coming into the lock. I'll take some clean water, then I'm just going to bring it along here and just touch the paint just in places, just let it run. Clean water. Once again, just dropping this in, allowing it to come through and down into the water. I have to pull a little bit down, drop a little bit of burnt sienna in, a bit more colour. That for a moment. Once again, just bringing some branches and twigs out. I think while we're waiting for that to dry off a little bit, kind of take some of this again. We can bring some reeds in here. Bring it down here, we have a mark on the paper, so I'll just cover it. Must have been an indentation. Just pulling a little bit of reflection out there, and then we're going to have to let that dry before we can pull the masking fluid off. Right, I've just rubbed the masking fluid off the trees. That's just so I could get the light against the dark in this little peninsula here. Just added some twigs and some bushes with a rigger brush or a detail brush and scratched a few movement lines in with a craft knife. So let's put some foliage on these trees. I wet this brush, then dried it, some more brush, and breaking the tips open. You can see that. So we'll break the tips open and we're going to go into our greens. This will soak up some of the paint. So straight into the almost black green. Once again, just try it first, make sure that you're not, it's just so it's not all clumped together. As you can see, why I've left the background hill lighter, just helps the dark stand out a little bit more. Put some structure in on these now, just branches. Just helps hold everything together. You can put as many of these on if you want, to. Just put a few more on, then you get the general idea. I think we'll just have 3 birds in the sky, maybe one wheeling over here. And this is where you get to sign it, mount it and frame it. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please click the like button and subscribe. Subscribers are always welcome. I'll leave a few suggestions at the end of this video for some other YouTube videos I've made. Also, until then, I'll see you next time.